Are you checking what is underlying problems that you might be dealing with? And are you simply dealing with them on a surface level?
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
Quick minisode for you today. First, a quick story. After I remind you that we're sponsored today by Spark. Spark for Appraisers. It was developed by appraisers for appraisers. It's a pretty damn good product. Check them out by going to Spark, F-O-R, appraisers.com, spark4appraisers.com. My wife is a gardener. Well, at least she wants to be a gardener. And I mean that I'm not talking behind her back. Hi, hon. Well, she doesn't actually listen to this podcast, but she struggled with gardening for her whole life. She wants to garden. She feels it's important. But it's a struggle in our area. The weather is a thing. The soil composition is a thing. Just her busy life, keeping up on it is a thing. But every year she plants a garden, and lately, the last several years, she's been doing raised gardens, so garden boxes, if you will. We find that in Idaho that works a little bit better because you choose the soil, right? It doesn't choose you, if you know what I mean. In Idaho, you can literally move 10 feet and have a completely different soil composition, pH level, blah, 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 blah. I don't know a whole lot about this stuff, but this is the stuff that she tells me, right? And I do know that when I dig holes in my yard, it can look very differently here than it does over there. And that can make all the difference in the world when it comes to growing vegetables and flowers and whatever you choose to grow. Well, recently, in the last couple of years, we have done the raised gardens where they are above ground with a bit of a liner, and this comes into play. The reason I'm going into detail here comes into play in the story today. But there's a liner underneath the box, and then there's the soil that we choose on top of that, okay, whether it be 6 inches or 18 inches, or we actually have a couple of boxes that are about 2.5, 3 feet deep, depending on what we're growing. And this spring, she went out and found that the quaking aspens, and if you're familiar with quaking aspens, you know that that they're trees that are like weeds. I love them. They're my favorite tree in the whole world. They're beautiful. I love seeing them in the mountains. In the yard, they're a little bit of a pain in the ass, okay? Because they are like weeds and they have a connected root base underneath, and they basically will pop up through anything, including pavement, including concrete even, okay? They are a pain to deal with, and we deal with them all the time because we have them all over our yard. Well, as my wife went out to plant the garden this spring, she found that the quaking aspen roots had grown up inside her garden boxes. Oh my, what do we do now, right? They are going to obviously get in the way of the roots of the plants that she's trying to grow. And so now there is a problem. I promise I'm going to come up with a solution here in just a bit. And I also want to parlay that into your appraisal office and some of the problems that you're dealing with there. First, I want to pause and remind you that we're sponsored by a great company with great people. Brandon, Kyle, the guys over at Spark are amazing appraisers, and they have developed a product that absolutely blows other things out of the water. If you want to save time, folks, if you want to take data from one screen to another with a punch of a button, Spark will do that for you, and it will do it for you very efficiently and inexpensively. Check them out by going to spark4appraisers.com. You can go to their website again, Spark, and it's not the number 4, but written out, F-O-R, spark4appraisers.com. Welcome back, my friends, in the gardening season here in Idaho. And my wife has found that there's roots growing up through her garden boxes. Oh my, what are we going to do? Well, I will tell you folks, I've not done it yet, but my son and I will probably in the next couple of days be working on this project. What is required, folks? It would be nice if we could just dig down there and cut these things and then be done with them. Here's the problem. First of all, they are deep. Okay. There's going to have to be some soil moved anyway. Secondly, when you cut the branches off, or the roots rather, off a quaking aspen, they are like impossible to kill. Okay. They will simply grow back, and we will be dealing with this time after time after time. Okay. So as a consequence, we do have a solution. And that is, we're going to have to get dirty. We're going to have to get into a project. We're going to have to remove, first of all, the dirt, or at least most of the dirt, from these garden boxes. Okay, put them on a tarp so we can save it for later. We're going to have to get in there and not just cut them back, but dig them out and around the garden boxes themselves. And then there's a little solution that we can put on there that will keep them from growing back. Okay, that does not mean we're not going to have problems in the future. That just means that this is going to be a very big project for probably little reward, if you ask me. Sometimes I ask my wife, why don't you just go to the store and buy some vegetables? It's a whole lot cheaper and a whole lot less time consuming. She doesn't think that's very funny. Folks, here is the lesson to be learned. Do you have roots growing in your appraisal garden? What do I mean by that? On your business, folks, are you checking what is underlying problems that you might be dealing with? And are you simply dealing with them on a surface level? Now, sometimes, folks, we're in triage mode and we have to. Sometimes that's all the choice we have. All we've got time to do is to fix the problem by putting a Band-Aid on it right now, and then we'll deal with the problem later in a much greater detail, okay? But I will tell you this, folks, there is a time and a season for that, but too often we, as business owners, use that approach far too often. We end up not doing the things that we should be doing far too often. We end up putting a Band-Aid on things far too often. Okay. Now, whether this be personnel that you need to cut out of your life, a system that is just not working and you're consistently dealing with it, okay, or what have you. I'm going to give you a very easy example. Okay. And you can use this example with really any part of your business. But there was a time that I had a misspelled word in my appraisal static addendum. Okay. When I say static, this is the addendum that's in there every single time. It's the generic information that I want in every appraisal. And there was a misspelling. And so part of my appraisal process is to do a spell check at the end of the process. Well, of course, I always forgot about the misspelled word until I did the spell check at the end of the process. Well, it usually came at the 11th hour when I'm trying to get the report out. And so I simply hit the skip or change button, rather. I changed it from whatever it was to wherever it should be. Okay. And I did that over and over and over again. Okay. Finally, one day when I was working on my business, not in my business, I had written this problem down and I dealt with it. Folks, it didn't take long. I just went to my template. Okay, I went to the template that I used to set up my report, and I went in there and I changed that spelling, and I never had a problem again. Okay. Did it take a little bit of time? Yes. How much more time did it take to change that word every single time it popped up, every single report that I did? Folks, again, what is the lesson learned? Sometimes we do the same dumb thing over and over and over again before we finally just take the time to fix the problem. Dig out the roots, keep them from growing further, and replant. Thank you for joining me today, folks. It's always a pleasure. Go create some value.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.